Hi friends, it's Becky, and today I'm going to have a really quick tutorial for you. Every day for the month of April, I have challenged myself to make a pair of earrings. So today I'm just going to make one pair of earrings with y'all, and I'm going to be using some handmade beads. Now these are beads that I made last month when I took an online course with Heather of Humble Beads to learn some caning and polymer clay working, and I made a ton of beads. This is just some of the beads that I made. And so I just pulled these out, and I love this pendant, by the way. I'm definitely going to be using this for something at some point when I get around to it. But then I made like some coin beads like this using some of those canes. And I still have leftover canes that I could still make more things with just from that class. I love these blue guys with the swirls. I think they're one of my favorites. And I've got some larger ones that have blue and yellow swirls. And then I've got some that are purple with some turquoise swirls. There's just a lot of really fun beads that I was able to make during that course. Let me get these guys put away real quick, and then I'll show you the beads that I'm using. I made a couple of coin beads like this that have the canes along the outsides of it pressed in. They have a hole that goes down through the center. And so I'm going to be using these in my earrings, and I'm also going to be using a couple of these disc beads that I made. Again, using some of these green canes, and then just some plain purple beads. These are also disc beads, and so I'm going to just make some really simple earrings using these handmade beads. And I'm going to use also some 22 gauge craft wire using an antique copper color. This is dead soft wire. And then I've got some kind of copper and crystal druck beads. These are about 4 millimeters. And I'm just going to use these as some spacers. I've got some ear wires that I've already made. Again, using that antique copper 22 gauge wire. And I'm just going to move aside half of those beads, and I will make one earring with y'all and then the other set or the other earring for the set on my own. So I'm just going to move one of these pieces of wire over here, and we'll get started on this. Now I'm going to do a coiled head pin by making a coil with my wire and then stacking my beads on top. To do that, I've got some tools that I'm going to be using. I've got my chain nose pliers, my round nose pliers, and some flush cutters. Now my pieces of wire are already cut flush, so I'm not going to need to do that. It's already flat right here on the end. So to make a coil, I'm just going to grip it right at the very tip of my round nose pliers and just slowly curve it around until it gets to the point where if I squeeze this, it's going to squeeze on 2 pieces of wire at the same time. I don't want to do that with my round nose pliers, so I'm going to set those aside and pick up my chain nose pliers. Flat nose pliers also work great for this, because what I want to do is grasp that coil and then move my wire around the coil like this. And the secret to good coils is going slowly. One other thing with gripping it like this is that it will flatten out that coil and kind of work harden it a little bit. I'm trying to decide how much coil I want. I think I'm going to go with 4 loops around, and that's counting from this side. So I've got 1, 2, and almost 3. So I'm going to go around another time. I just want to make sure that I note how large or long it is, so that when I make my second one, my coil can be about the same length. All right, so now when it gets to about the same part that this beginning of my wire is, about there, maybe a little bit more, there we go. So now I've got the coil made right here. I'm going to grasp this with my chain nose pliers and just bend that right up, straight up from the bottom like that. And now I've got my coiled head pin, and I can start stacking my beads on it. And I'm going to start with this really pretty coin bead, and then one of the directs right there, the larger disc bead, like that, another direct. Again, I'm using these as spacers. They're just these 4mm directs that are two duo-toned. They've got like a little bit of a copper finish on them, but they're also that crystal color, so it looks really nice with the antique copper color stuff. And then I've got my third guy right there, and then one more up here. And I think having the spacers around these beads really helps, because it's kind of, it looks a little bit rough because of the fact that they're handmade and like polymer clay, but having these spacers kind of makes it look a little more polished, I think. All right, so now I'm going to want to make a loop right up here. I don't want to look at my spiral. I want my spiral to be turned to the side while I bend my wire away from me. That way when I make my loop, it'll face in the same direction as this spiral. So now I'm going to grab my round nose pliers again, now that I've bent that over. I bent it over the top of my chain nose pliers, so there's room here for wrapping my loop when I wrap it. And I'm just going to grip it here in my round nose pliers, bend that over the top, rotate my pliers, and finish pulling this all the way around. And that's not a real centered loop, so I'm just going to adjust it a little bit and get it centered again. So now I've got my loop right up there at the top of this. Just going to pull the wire around that core till I get down to a bead. And that should be done. You could do this as a pendant as well as for earrings. If you had a nice big coin bead like this and a couple of disc beads. All right, I will put a link to the course that I went to in the description over at Humble Beads, but Heather also sells handmade beads as well. So if you didn't want to attend a course to make these, I'm sure you could buy some beads from her. And now I can put my ear wire on. And I've got an earring. All I need to do is make a second one of these and I'll have a set. Hope y'all are having a great day. Happy hump day and happy beading.